Morgan.
Hi, I'm Alicia.
We're just going to kind of talk together about our semester and everything that we've done and what we think is going to benefit us in the future.
We figured it would be a good idea, since we're both ag ed majors, to discuss basically how we would incorporate all of this stuff in our classroom in the future.
So our first thing we're going to talk about is our first teaching opportunity, dumbing us down. It was definitely a crash and burn for me. Alicia's, I think, was a little bit different, but...
For me, after discussing what we did, we both did lectures, but I also did a worksheet with scenarios, and basically we read the scenarios and the student had to pick whether it was intellectual dependency, professional self-esteem, surveillance, or emotional dependency.
And I did the lecturing type, and I had confusion, class position, and indifference. I found that lecturing was not beneficial at all because my partner was not able to gain any information from what I taught. It was very boring, and I felt like I didn't achieve what I wanted to with lecturing.
I think I agree with mine too. Even though I had a scenario or worksheets full of scenarios, my student wasn't engaged whatsoever, and so we both thought that it kind of was a little bit rough, especially since we didn't really have any guidelines. And
yeah, having no guidelines, I think, was the roughest part for me because I was so used to a set in stone. You're going to do this, you're going to have this in it, make sure you incorporate this, whereas this time we had nothing to help us. So I feel like that really kind of, it was hard, but it also guided me to try and strive to do better with my next teaching opportunities. And the next one was deculturalization. I used puzzle pieces to get my point across. I had Hispanic on one of them, Asian American, African American, and then the white population. And I showed pictures as well. I did a Canadian, Asian, and then a white, and I showed their skin colors and showed that there was no difference. And I was able to kind of show that how they all fit together in the same way, but they were characterized based on their skin colors and the way that they looked, when in reality all of us are the same.
For me, this was like one of my favorite individual teaching opportunities, even though like I was still getting through the works. But basically what I did was I asked my students to act out what my note card said, and it was in Spanish. And thank goodness I didn't have any students that spoke Spanish. And so they had no idea I was saying, like, stand up or shake your hands and stuff like that. And so they kind of stepped into the Hispanic shoes in American schools and really did not like it. I also showed pictures of Hispanic workers and also Hispanic children in segregated schools, and we had a discussion about that, and it kind of was nice to get away from lecturing and PowerPoints and stuff like that.
I agree. My puzzle pieces, they all fit together, and I just, like Alicia did, I kind of showed, how we all do fit together, but then I had them all start taking away certain pieces to where whites population was the only one left, and it showed that how we are the minority, and we're slowly starting to change it, and how we need to incorporate everyone together, not just one population against all the rest of them.
And so I think like this was really cool that we had this in our semester because I mean, a lot of people think that racism was like segregated schools and stuff, but it still happens today, and it's something that we really need to look for in our classrooms in the future.
We need to direct everyone's attention away from racism and we need to incorporate everyone together rather than push them apart, I think, from one another.
Our next one was freedom to learn, and even though this was our last teaching opportunity, I felt like I crashed and burned as well. I had chapter 4, and it was an elementary teacher does an experiment, and I'm not sure if it was just because it was early in the morning or what, but basically to grab their attention, I allowed them to use any of the tools that I had available, and they could like show me what their favorite hobby was, like outside of school. And so, I mean, they did really well with that, and it was supposed to kind of show how kids can do self-directed learning in a classroom with anything that you give them.
Mhm.
And I mean, it went well, but for my last facilitation, I didn't really enjoy it as much.
Mine, I really actually enjoyed my Freedom to Learn chapter. I took specific scenarios out of the chapter and kind of incorporated them with each of my individual students that I was teaching for that day. I had 3 scenarios. One was a substitute teacher manager, which is when, say, you're sick one day as a teacher and a sub comes into your classroom, but you have a plan in place for your students. So that way they're able to help your substitute teacher with turning in attendance in the office or even help with the lecture itself. They all are incorporated into it. My next one was there was a little girl named Anna who came into the classroom, and she had severe mental disabilities as well as physical disabilities, so her learning wasn't up to speed. And I said that there was 18 other students in the classroom as well as Anna, and I just asked, how would you make Anna feel like she's just another student? Do you feel like it would hurt you in the classroom? What kinds of ways would you help improve the classroom itself, as well as incorporating each and every one of the students in with Anna? So I feel like that one was really beneficial. And then I also did a dropout. So the student dropped out, and there was one teacher that he really liked, but the rest of them he felt like were very mean to him, weren't able to show him what he needed, weren't helping him, were just rude and wouldn't listen. And so then I just asked each and every one of the scenarios as I got done, do you feel like this could happen in your classroom? And each of the scenarios do happen in everyday classrooms. So I felt like, they were really good scenarios to share with people and, work through them, and how would you help one another get through it.
That's cool. The next thing that we would like to talk about is our favorite group facilitation.
Yeah, as well as our own, too.
Mm-hmm.
I did Summerhill. I loved it. The book was great. It was, about the kids are free to do what they want. They don't have to go to school. They don't have to go to class. They could just do anything. I think that was one of Alicia's favorites, also in her class.
Yeah, even though we were in different classes, teaching about the book, of course, it's going to be similar, but we got to play games all day and still learn at the same time, and it was probably the most fun I've ever had in an 805 class.
I think one of my favorites was in our class specifically was Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire. Their teaser was great, so I was so excited, for their actual lesson. For the teaser, they burnt a piece of paper, and Joe gave a long speech about how it was going to change, how, what was going to come for the class. And I just remember that one the most because it was most energetic, most fun. They had everyone incorporated. Everyone was well prepared. That you could tell that they had worked several hours on their facilitation. Then I also liked Keeping Track.
I liked that one as well. Mm-hmm. We both of our classes did board games, and they were different board games, but we still got the objective. Mm-hmm. But I just thought it was really fun because you weren't just playing a board game, you were doing jumping jacks and push-ups.
And ours wasn't so much that, but I started out as a drug dealer. I was addicted to drugs, and I was a rebel child. And then by the time I got to high school, I had completely turned my life around, where I was an honor student. I had a scholarship to Duke to play basketball. It was interesting, and you could tell that they put a lot of time into it because each of us had our own specific cards in my class. It was set up to where I was supposed to start out as a drug dealer, but then completely turned my life around. But another girl in my class, her path was had a bad family, all through grade school, junior high, got into high school, got pregnant. She, had an awful life, and then, she didn't go to college. It was interesting to see everyone's different scenarios that they go through.
I think the most impactful thing that I got from Keeping Track though was the realization of that it actually happened when we were in high school.
How different each of us are.
Yeah, and then in elementary they had gifted programs, and not gonna lie, I was a little jealous that I wasn't ever in the gifted program because I had A's in all my classes, and it just kind of goes to show how you can put certain kids on a pedestal and how it can cause issues with other kids who are the same.
Exactly. And see, in my high school, we didn't have a gifted program, but we had specific classes that if you were at, a high stage of science, you could take that class. Or math, you had to take a test in order to get into calculus or whatever. But it definitely, like the kids that were in those classes, like I loved math. I had A's all through high school in math, but I didn't pass that test. I'm not good at tests. But then, you could have me do a problem and I could do it. And I love it. I'm still pretty good at it.
Yeah. It's definitely an eye-opener.
And a lot of them, I feel like that were in those programs in my school, personally, were teachers' kids. That's how it was in my school.
Or, like, teachers' pets.
Yeah, definitely. Next, we're going to talk about our service learning. And we both did our service learning at Meadowlark, but we had completely different experiences. So.
Totally different.
Do you want to go ahead?
So I volunteered at the Tinklin House, and most of the people that lived there were pretty, like, coherent. They were just in old age. I met a couple that lived there together, and they were really nice. I had a couple discussions with them during their lunches, and one of them was actually a 4-H advisor.
Really?
And it was really cool because I got to talk to him and told him that I was going to be an ag ed teacher, and so he was excited that they still incorporated ag in the schools.
That's nice.
But there were a few issues with, like, people who have, like, dementia and stuff like that, which I think Morgan said that she had to deal with.
I was in the Collins house, and it was all dementia patients, and it was very hard because the first day, I had a hard time getting hold of Meadowlark in the first place, and the first day I showed up, they told me I was supposed to go to a lady at exactly 6 o'clock and tell her my name, and I was supposed to write all the information down, like what days I'd be there, and she wasn't there when I showed up. So the staff had no idea what I was doing there. They couldn't tell me anything I was supposed to do, so I sat there on the couch for almost 2.5 hours, and the elderly patient that they had me talk to wasn't able to communicate. They couldn't talk very well. And so that made it really hard, to get through to people. But then I also talked to another lady who, grew up on a farm. She raised pigs, so that was kind of neat. She knew a big farmer from where I scouted some fields this summer for a farmer who had a lot of pigs, and she knew them. So, but she remembers, the grandpa because she couldn't remember, the children because she thought she was still, 30. And then I had another patient who thought he was 25, but really he was 75. And it was just really hard to talk to the patients because a lot of them didn't talk. And, the staff was not very helpful with me. They didn't, direct me and anything that I could do. So I was just kind of sitting there most of the time.
I think it, like, stinks that you weren't able to, like, learn directly from the residents, but, like, in the future when you have classmates that have disabilities,
I think it'll help
that
out
can't
a lot,
talk and things like that, like, you learned, I think both of us learned the patients.
And I also tried to relate to them, like, how they're feeling. Like, they still think that they're 25 and living at home and married and have their kids, whereas, they're 75 and they're completely different. Most of them can't walk by themselves. I don't think any of them could. And so then the next time I went back, you build these relationships, but they didn't remember me from the first time. So that was kind of hard.
Restarting.
Yeah, it's restarting everything over again. So we're going to kind of talk about how we want to incorporate our experiences through class to our classroom with ag.
We really loved the learning community aspect, being in a classroom. With ag ed, not only do you have the classroom aspect, but you also have CDEs, like going to FFA conventions and things like that, and also in the shop. And so it's really, really important for students to gain a respect within each other, and also, like, if they're going to be using hand saws and power tools and things like that, they need to have a respect for their peers and also their teacher to be able to even use.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of a safe community. One way that you do individual meetings, but one way that they kind of do individual meetings with ag ed is through or
CDEs.
CDEs. They go out into the field. It's also SAEs, I guess. But they go out into the field with a student who is doing these SAEs, and it's the student activity. Like it's an education experience, and they go out to help a farmer for the day. And so their advisor, which would be us, go out with them and kind of, see what they're doing, make sure that, they really like it. And it kind of gives the advisor and that student one-on-one, I feel like. Yeah. And it kind of grows a bond closer. So if you have a troubled student, you know what they're doing outside of the class, which could be, the cause of their problems, or, you're helping them so that way they're succeeding by doing this.
Especially, I think it's important to do maybe an individual meeting throughout the whole semester because, in the beginning, you really don't know their lives until you actually get a chance to talk to them and their families. It's really important to establish, positivity with their families and not just...
you gotta start off positive.
Oh, your son came to school today and did this, and of course...
We went on a field trip a couple weeks ago to a classroom. We went on a field trip a couple weeks ago to a classroom, and this specific teacher, she was young. Okay. So basically, we just went to the classroom, got to meet with the teacher, and she talked about how important it was to start off positive with her students. So she sent out a letter at the beginning of the year to each of the parents, so that way their first encounter with her was positive.
I think that's really cool, too.
I think it's a good way to kind of start, getting to know your students as well as their parents as well.
One thing that I definitely want to include in my classroom, and I think Morgan does as well, is service learning. When I first started this class, I was like, I'm already going to be doing community service for my sorority. Why do I need to be doing this for my class? But, I really grew. I really gained personal growth to do the service learning, and I think in a classroom it'd be really important because the kids can help the community, and also we could just do a field trip during the day to go do it. They don't have to do it out of school. And
I agree. I think service learning is really important from everything that we've done and learned, and it helps students see different aspects of different people, and it helps within the community, I think, too. So.
Another thing that I want to include in my classroom is self-directed learning. I really thought that Summerhill was really cool because, there's definitely going to be those days where the kids don't want to do what I want them to do, and so they need to have a say in what they want to learn or how they want to learn it, and I think that's really important.
Freedom to choose everything that they want to do. Like with the SAEs, choose where they want to go, do their SAE at. If they want to go to a power plant and just watch for the day, or if they want to go follow a farmer for the day, or work at a pig farm, whatever.
Especially, it's important when also preparing for contests. So you have some kids that are involved in FFA that are in your classes, and you have some kids that don't necessarily want to do that, or they are involved but they don't want to do certain contests. And so the kids that are studying for them, they can be someplace in the classroom getting that done, and the other kids can choose what they want to do at the same time. They don't all have to be, directed by the teacher.
Yeah, I think that helps out a lot. And we went to another classroom where he brought in the community members to help with the different contests, like livestock judging, or, crops judging, that kind of stuff that deals with different aspects of FFA. Well, that's kind of everything that we learned throughout the semester and how we're going to incorporate it within our own classrooms. So we've had a great semester.
Yep, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.